This is the Volvo XC40 Recharge, a full EV version of the car. Now, you can get it in petrol, you can get it in plug-in hybrid and this full-on version, but it's nothing to do with Polestar. That's an entirely different company altogether, but there are some similarities when you get underneath the skin of this car, because the platform this was built on, the intent was always there to get a battery into it. So actually, although it's not technically a ground-up EV, it's kind of got the best of a couple of worlds. We'll get to that in a second. We'll also get to the price, which here in Ireland is not cheap. But first of all, if you haven't hit subscribe on the channel, or hit like, or maybe later on in the video, have never commented on the video, please make this your first time. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, trust me. I often get asked by people, do electric cars have an engine in there? Well, first of all, there's no engine, it's a motor. And in this case, well, actually it has what has become known as a frunk, a front trunk. We could call it a fruit because we call these parts of the back boots, but let me demonstrate anyway. Just like any bonnet, you pull a lever inside and up it comes, and there's a little catch just here. It's on struts, it sits into place, and here is a 30-ish litre space that you can put charging cables. I wouldn't say an overnight bag because it's just not going to fit, but maybe some shopping items. It's also to make up for the fact that this electric version of the car has a slightly smaller boot than the non-full-on EV version of the XC40, but they nearly cancel each other out by adding that in. So it's nice to have the option. The way you'll also spot this car being different is there's no grille on the front. Everything else, apart from maybe the alloy wheels and a badge here or two, you really wouldn't know this is an electric car. And some people love that. We are sitting on 20-inch alloy wheels, diamond cut vibes going on, a big long black skirt along the side of the car, which will probably protect the paint from getting scratched and stuff like that. Black housing for the mirrors. You do get blind spot. In fact, on the Recharge version, you kind of get everything. Roof rails, panoramic glass, sunroof. These back doors don't open as wide as you might imagine. And it's not that it's prohibitive, but it just makes getting a child seat in. You're going to bang off things as you do. It's not as wide as some other cars in the segment, like even the Nissan Qashqai, which is technically in the same segment, kind of, because it's actually probably a bit bigger, but not as expensive. Strange enough, we've got more piano black down here with a rougher bumper here. The lights, the kind of L shapes, and the opposite side on the left. A really imposing boot spoiler comes right the way down over the rear windshield, and huge big Volvo lettering across the back. Recharge Twin is the badge here. That means it has power going to the front axle and power going to the back axle. It's four-wheel drive and it's got a serious amount of poke. We'll get to that very, very soon. You can also swipe your foot under the boot for keyless entry. And the boot's an interesting one because Volvo, like the Swedes, they like storage. So you can lift up the shelf in the boot halfway, slot it into a groove there, and actually divide the boot in half if you have shopping here. And I don't know, deeper items here. There's also storage in here for some cables, your granny cable, nice big huge Volvo bag worth of netting. Want to use that to keep things secure, you can. You'll find all those things down here, and there's some small little dividers either side of the boot as well, just to keep things safe. And a parcel shelf that does have to come out if you want to get a dog box or anything like that in there. It is going to have to come out. But yes, you get the electric tailgate as standard on the Recharge version. Good bit of practicality going on. Also for rear passengers, you'll get a child's bottle buried in the door pocket. Little bit of storage extra down the side here. We get an armrest that has got decent space for two generous sized cup holders. No access to the rear via that, but it's quite easy. There's electronic assist going on with these seats, and you can drop them down very, very easily. And it's pretty much flat actually. So if you're trying to load things in from the back, it'll make the job quite a bit easier. If you have two child seats either side here, you will actually get a fully grown adult here. It'll be tight, but you can do it. There's also a decent hump on the floor, so that doesn't make that middle passenger's life particularly easy, but there's heated seats, there's charging for devices, 2 USB-C ports back here actually, and there's aircon that you can adjust, although it's the same temperature as up front. There's pockets on the backs of the seats. The glass roof doesn't actually really impose into the roof headspace. There's tons of it. And I think the legroom is very, very generous. And the seats are massively raised off the floor. So if anyone has something to moan about here in the back, I'd be very, very surprised. There's even a couple of hooks to carry things and your own individual lights, which are nicely dampened, how they just softly come on and you touch them and they go out again. So I am very, very impressed by it. Just watch out for the Isofix seat covers. If you have them sticking out, not using the Isofix, they'll stick into your back. It's a bit ouchy. They'll also catch your finger if you close them without watching what you're doing. Apart from that though, top job. Because it's Volvo and they're obsessed with safety, you can actually lock the child lock and the window locks from the driver's control panel, which does make life easier. Right then, give us some bad news, will you? Okay. This car is about 68,000 euro as tested today. The Recharge range starts at 64, and that is well over a 12,000 euro jump, even from the hybrid version. And there are different trim versions that you can get, but it's not cheap. Now, it's backed up by some serious performance figures. We'll get to them in the drive, but when you can buy an XC60, it doesn't have a full electric battery, granted, for the same price, a lot of people will think, I might just hang on to the next one for an extra car and I'm just going to get the bigger Volvo that looks a bit more impressive in the car park just for now. There's also an XC90 full EV version coming sometime in 2022. So it is very, very expensive, but it is very, very good. You'll get keyless on this model. You'll get extenders to the back of your legs. Also, wireless charging, a bin that you can use, generous storage under the armrest for keys and stuff. And one thing that you'll have to get used to is when you jump into the car, there's no handbrake and there's no on-off button. There's a sensor in the seat, and when you hop into it, it knows you're here and everything comes to life, including the aircon. This is the first XC40 that is powered behind the screens by Google. So your maps, how the charging works, how if you put in a journey and it's calculating, oh, you need to stop here for a charge, would you like to factor this in? That all works with Google for the first time, and it works very, very well, including Google Assist. So, hey Google.
Okay, indeed. How can I help?
What's the weather today? Now, when you do that, it goes back out of the menu, so you actually just need to kind of get talking to it straight away. What's the weather forecast today, please?
Today in Dublin, it'll be partly cloudy, with a forecast high of 17 and a low of 12. Currently it's 17 degrees and mostly cloudy.
You can also ask it to take you to destinations. Take me to Dublin Airport, please.
Navigating to Dublin Airport, Dub.
It works every single time, first time, which is impressive. Is Cristiano Ronaldo insane?
I don't understand.
Because it's a Volvo, it's also very nice on the inside. The only thing I can really question is actually the steering wheel. There's a weird synthetic kind of wrapping on this. Just give me soft leather. Volvo, no one gets hurt. There's a Harman Kardon sound system. It's fantastic. The seats are supportive, wonderfully supportive. Yes, there is a Swedish flag here. Wouldn't be a Volvo without it. I can get the limiter to work, but I can't get the cruise control to work. I have no idea why. Another total bugbear of mine is this car will not give you the range in kilometers, just percentages. You can't change it. I have tried. And also, if you don't really like touchscreens, well, you'll kind of be bothered because while For example, the climate is always down the bottom. You do have to go into a menu if you want to do anything more than just turn the aircon up or down. If you want to mess with, let's say, the auto function of it, if you want to sync it with the driver. Heated seats and heated steering wheel are also controlled down here, as are all the settings for the car, including the setting that you'll turn on once and never touch it again, and that's one pedal driving. Because when you start doing it with an electric vehicle, you will never go back. The reverse camera is fantastic. There's a full 360 panorama bird's eye view of everything, and then you can select different perspectives, and if you want to look this way or sideways, you can do all that from the touch screen. Your selector for gear is just drive. That's it. You pull it into drive and away you go. There's nothing else to do to set this car. Accelerator, go, and that's it. But in terms of premium interior as electric vehicles on the market today go, this is right up there. This is Volvo build quality at its finest, and it should be for that fairly significant price. By the way, I didn't mention earlier on when I was talking about the euro prices, that means in Ireland, after our VRT and all our taxes and charges, this car is about £58,000 sterling. So you think you have it bad in the UK? Not quite. So we got a 75 kilowatt hour usable battery, 78 actually in real terms. It'll deliver a range of up to 400 kilometers, but I just don't know if you're ever going to see that, because this has got over 400 brake horsepower and almost 500 pounds per foot of torque. It is a Volvo that will do 0 to 60 miles an hour in less than 5 seconds. And when you look at it in its lovely color, you just probably wouldn't think that. The car can do up to 150 kilowatt charging, and if you find a charger that fast, there's very few here in Ireland, you'll be able to get the battery well over 80% in 40 minutes. Alongside that impressive 150 kilowatt charging, there's an 11 kilowatt onboard charger. A wall box at 7 kilowatts will take just over 8 hours, and Volvo say you can charge to 90% regularly due to how much of the battery it actually uses. The state of charge can be set to a minimum or maximum also, using a slider on the touchscreen, and preheating and cooling of the cabin is also possible. In some ways it's actually a hard car to compare to stuff like the ID4, the Enyaq, even some of the Tesla stuff, although Tesla's probably the closest because at least that has high performance versions out now. The ID3, ID4 and Enyaq, they're just over 200 brake horsepower, so to compare this to them just isn't fair. If you floor this, you are properly shoved into the back of your seat, and there is never ever a struggle for grip with power going to front and rear axles. So it's a four-wheel drive vehicle and it just gets the power down incredibly well. There's other practical things such as there's a tag in the windscreen. Now I don't know if Skoda came up with it first or Volvo came up with it first. Maybe you could let me know in the comments below as to who actually came up with that car park ticket clip, but it is handy. Now, the inside of the door cards is made of, I presume, a recycled material, but it just feels cheap, and it feels like those awful carpets you had in primary school in the 1990s and beyond, depending on what age you're in watching this video. There's also a mode to firm up the steering wheel, and I'd switch it on and just leave it like that because it adds a nice weight to it. It is quite light without it. The fact that the battery was always intended to go into this model, it does mean, particularly for a crossover, that it can handle bends pretty well. I mean, there is a little bit of lean in it, a little bit of body roll at times, but generally you're driving something that actually handles pretty well and doesn't suffer from that elevated weight of the batteries that you might get in a vehicle of this segment that was never actually fully intended to be an EV. How quick it can move away from a set of lights and get you up to the legal speed limit will never cease to put a smile on your face. But if you use all that power regularly, it's going to drain the battery. I have not seen it dip below 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And that would suggest it's thirsty, and that would suggest if you're doing well you might just about get 300 kilometers out of an actual charge. The regen braking, you switch it on and you have one pedal driving. I rarely have to use the brake. It's very, very good. There's also an option where you can switch on a rear brake, which means the car will sense if someone is about to rear end you, apply the brakes and stop you hitting the car in front. Even in NCAP safety tests for this car, vulnerable pedestrians still scored 71%. It's well over 95 in some segments. It is an incredibly safe car. That's just what Volvo do. That would be a taxi driver who just crept out in front of a truck. Also half sounds like an ambulance. I'm not sure how you get away with that. But if that was me, the car probably wouldn't have let me do it in the first place. Volvo's ambitions for EV are pretty big. Like by 2025, they want 40% vehicles. By 2040, they want to be an entirely carbon neutral company. That also includes trucks and how parts and vehicles get to places. How it's all going to work out, I don't know. But electrification is where they are investing their money at the moment. I think the main drawback of this car is just the price. It is quite expensive. There are other options. There's other Volvo options that would be plug-in hybrid, for example, that people might just prefer to go for just right now. It does depend on the budget. It's by no means a bad car at all. You are getting a good one, a good electric vehicle for that money with all the luxury that Volvo throws in as standard. But there's no getting away from it. 66 grand is an awful lot of money. A Model 3 Tesla is under 50. And even the long range, even the performance Model 3 will probably be similar to this. And those Teslas will definitely do more in terms of range if that is important to you. But if you want a familiar badge, you want something that looks good, and you won't have to explain to anybody what exactly your car is that you're after buying, if those things are more important, then an XC40 is a really good option for you, because it just feels so well put together, safe, and also bloody quick. As I said at the start of the video, there's loads of ways to support the channel with Patreon, PayPal, but even commenting, liking the video, sharing the video and subscribing all help, because it just pushes the video along nicely as soon as it goes live. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the XC40 Recharge. Maybe I've helped you to narrow it down into a short list. Maybe I've helped you rule it out for whatever reason that maybe just doesn't seem right for you right now. Either way, the goal is just trying to provide reviews that help inform and help make you decide what way your next vehicle purchase is going to go. I will see you on the next one, and thank you very much for watching.